business investment, and, of course, overseas aid. We might also pursue a thought that has been favoured by some to introduce payments for ecosystem services whose loss or removal could damage human rights. In other words, an immense complexity, but tackled first on a national basis. Other groups of countries, for example, China and India, or Latin America and Sub-Saharan Africa, could undertake the same kind of operation, deciding again on the basis of their national interest how to assess and measure the costs of what is going on. When I was running the aid ministry, I tried to institute some of these thoughts myself, in getting countries not just to receive economic aid to pursue the course of so-called development, but how best to assess their assets, make better use of them, and above all go for health, wealth and happiness rather than economic growth in the classic sense in which economists still talk. All this would help to determine the general direction of their policies and how best to protect and develop their interests and the human rights of their citizens. Eventually, within a plurality of agreements, industrial countries, other countries, whatever you like, other countries all over the world, with a plurality of agreements, governments could think again about a global system into which they could all be fitted. Among the definition and protection of national interests involved would certainly be protection of human rights with respect for natural justice, the rule of law, and indeed climate change. I support the conclusions and recommendations in the report of the independent expert to the United Nations Human Rights Council of last December, which many of you will have seen. Now, in conclusion, none of this would be easy. Governments, like people, usually need a fright, but above all, a credible fright, before changing their minds in the fundamental ways that are necessary to meet the challenges of climate change and its effects on human rights. Major change is usually the product of three main factors: leadership from above, through governments and institutions; pressure from below in the form of non-governmental and community organizations such as yours; and catastrophes, painful for some but benign for others, where cause and effect can be clearly identified and the appropriate lessons learnt. Human rights are at the heart of the issues and will certainly remain there. I wish the President's Task Force on Climate Change, Justice and Human Rights all possible success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sir Crispin, for getting us off to a very insightful start and giving us that global and historical perspective. It's wonderful to have that insight from the international level, because that's where we tried to start. You urged it back in 1977 in this book. It didn't get too far, but we're going to see what we can do to all pursue various angles. And this is his book from 1977. He autographed it for me today. I'm very pleased. Our next speaker is Michael Gerard. Michael is the Andrew Sabin Professor and Director of the Center for Climate Change Law at Columbia Law School. Obviously a specialist, highly qualified and experienced in this area. He's also Associate Chair of the Faculty of